for a special, now we move on to the last part of our session, and I would like to invite Dr. John Paulin to introduce our chief guest. John has a doctorate in Interdisciplinary Humanities from UC Berkeley, where he studied Greek tragedy and Greek and German philosophy. He said he wishes he were as smart as Professor Towns, but so does everybody else.
Okay, so I've been asked to introduce Charles Towns, okay, the man who gave the world the laser, 64 Nobel laureate in physics, recipient of India's Tagore Award, and the scholar who writes about convergence of science and religion, and is a 2005 Templeton laureate. So that's saying a lot. I really admire Dr. Presti's talk, and I've heard him talk before, and he's very inspiring, so some of this has already been covered. But I was at a loss where to start, so I decided on the direct approach. Okay, so how to be like Charles Towns. 1, solve real problems for wider social benefit. So there was the radar in World War II that, they had to fight, fascist governments that were trying to destroy democracy, very genocidal, the whole works. So, he is all about public service, and he continues to be, and he's a problem solver, and he makes science happen, and it saves lives. So I'd like to add here that this is not Charles's first water crisis. Now, his first water crisis, you'll know if you read his biography, was during the war. And the problem there was that microwaves they were using were at 1.25 centimeters, which is very good for microwave ovens, but bad for radar, over the ocean. So, which drove them to shorter wavelengths, and that ultimately resulted in the maser. But that was a joke. But okay. So the second thing for be like Charles is to up the ante. So how do you do that? Well, you make science happen again, but in ways that all the authorities claim is impossible. So, of course, the story, Niels Bohr told him it was impossible. John von Neumann told him it was impossible. Robbie, a bunch of other people told him it was impossible, and he went out and did it. So this brings us to the third point, which is ignore authorities. Now, Charles is not a rebel by any means, but he is somebody that is a man of incredible conscience, and if he thinks he has the answer and you're telling him wrong, he's not going to listen to you. So he will persevere. But so here's a story. He wasn't always like this, however. So in grad school, I just was reading his biography the other night, said that he determined the spin of carbon-13 to be 1/2. However, his professor at Caltech insisted that this was wrong. So here's a quote from Charles. I didn't quite know how to contradict my professor, so I let the results come out. So apparently he learned real fast. But so he believes that the episode taught him to be, quote, still more stubborn, unquote. But of course, this stubbornness, I think of that as courage, conviction, dedication. So, these go a long way to explaining the character and values of the man, and how those through him contribute to this incredible invention of the laser, which is changing our world. Okay, so there are a bunch of other things now that we're into character traits. Persistence. When you know or believe you're onto something, you persist. So I guess that's similar to stubbornness. Success. Well, that proves you were right all along. A lot of people stop here and just, bask in the success, but not Charles. He doesn't wait for the dust to settle. He gets out there and lets everyone else do the dirty work. So he wants to invent something new. So after he was done with the microwave laser there, he did get the first patent on the laser, but as I recall from his biography, which I read last year, that he thought there was too much competition there. So now that everyone knew how to do it, so he'd just go on and do something else. So he did go and was a pioneer discovering, complex molecules in outer space. And of course, all the authorities there said that that was not possible. So this is, he looks for new challenges. So there will be plenty of people to clean up this rich, wonderful mess that you left behind. So, look at all these masers, lasers. I mean, they're inventing new masers. I mean, that's not old news. Okay, 7, repeat. Go back to step 3, start process all over with a different set of authorities. Okay, so again, he's not a rebel, but I sure would be. Okay, generosity. Now, this also is it's science. It's Charles the Man, and it is what brings forth, builds and develops knowledge in this world. So this involves the sharing of ideas, building of community, and respectful dialogue with others. And these are all Charles' terms. So here's a quote from an interview that I found online, and this is Charles. If you're too much of a loner, then you lose what many other people have discovered and know. You want to know what they know and to build on that. And they should know what you know and be able to build on that. Also, just trying out ideas and talking about things, some chance comment may allow you to recognize something that the person making the comment hasn't recognized. And it seems, Charles is a very introspective man, and you read his book, he just sort of like gets absorbed into the internal nature of matter, and just things happen in his mind, and he has hunches and he works on them. But these again are often triggered by things that people know that you don't know. It's an interaction which is also a field of discovery. Ideas come about in conversation, seeing somebody else's work, thinking about it, looking at it from another perspective. So, for Charles, science is about humans working together, but it's also fun. So it's a game, and for him, I think it's a celebration of the universe and his connection to it. Now, how does Charles play? He keeps saying he doesn't retire because it's too fun. So, what's his game? Well, I think it's pretty much the same as Newton. So Newton was asked to describe himself, and he said he felt like a boy playing on the seashore, and he's picking up smooth pebbles and prettier shells, and all the while he is totally unaware that there's this great ocean of truth all around him. So, with due respect to Dr. Presti, I think that the great ocean of truth is much bigger than anything we're going to find. We still only got 2 lobes in our brain, but that's my perspective. I'm not a neuroscientist. So, okay, so that is brings us to the final point. I just think that, think of everything that is done with the laser, how much we know about the cosmos that we wouldn't know if we didn't have it. It's like he's taken the sand from Newton's seashore and he put it in a box, and every single modern science is playing in it now. So it's Charles' game. That is, some sense, modern science, and we're all in it too, because our Blu-ray players and all that kind of stuff, laser printers all use lasers. So everybody is indebted to Charles. Now, search for ever greater unities. So again, part of the thing with Charles is that he wants to examine nature and find its unity. And he's done a lot with lasers. Now he's going off into find molecules in space, and he's been interested in this since graduate school. So I guess it's time to do something different. But what is physics but an attempt to find greater and more beautiful unities? Theories we have get more and more complicated, but overall the contribution is we get some sense that there is some great unity that we can describe in increasingly better terms. So that is what is behind the M theory, I think, is the power of mathematics to construct beautiful models, and the models, if we can test them, often work. But the what I learned from David Presti, though, was that science is creating unity. It's creating these great, magnificent sort of cosmological temples. It's the structure of creation, probably, as Charles would put it. But at the same time, people like Professor Presti are taking the brain apart and putting it out into little pieces on the table and saying, how the hell does this work? So the more science progresses one way, everything that is contributed to the unity of what we know by people like Dr. Towns is undone by Dr. Presti. So I think that this is just why I love both men. They're my favorite professors at Cal. And I haven't studied with either of them, but I wish I did. Plus I was just in the humanities. But at any rate, one other thing to say is that mathematics is this incredible power. We don't know how it works. All we know is that it does work. I mean, one of the works Dr. Presti read, I recommend it to all of you, was the guy that got the Nobel Prize before Charles was Eugene Wigner, and he wrote this incredible essay called The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Mathematics for the Natural Sciences. And his point there is that why does math work, and more particularly, why does beautiful math work, and why should, he thinks that mathematicians are narcissistic people and just sit around and make beautiful theories to impress each other and don't give a damn about the universe, but it is this kind of stuff that makes science work. Now, on the other hand, why does that work? Well, we have absolutely no idea. So Wigner says that we're just lucky it does, and this is what then he says we don't deserve it either. So this is not the anthropic principle; it is the misanthropic principle. But I think that this is really, it's one of my favorite works of epistemology, and that's one of the things I've studied. Okay, so the brain works the other way. But back to Dr. Presti and the Dalai Lama and Vivekananda, to whom Dr. Tom wished us to dedicate this conference. India has another approach to the mind, but I'm not capable of talking it because I'm just Western metaphysics and how we think we know everything. So what I understand about modern science and unity, Charles is not just a scientist. There are other ways to think about the unity of things. So where does unity begin with Charles? Where does it begin with anything? Where does it begin with our species? I think generosity. We've been generous beings, social beings, before we were human beings, our primate forebears. So you got the quote from Charles. He wants to open dialogues with people. This generosity and sharing at present, communities will always be there, and there will be caring. But if you do Google searches on Charles and sharing, you'll see that people say that he's incredibly open with his ideas. But this will get us to the heading toward the Templeton Laureate here. Okay, so the bonds. Okay, so let me do this fast. Okay, so he's a 2005 Templeton Laureate. He's a theologian who talks about convergence of science and religion, and he's a recipient of India's Tagore Award. So he's an incredible guy. Now, Charles Towns told me to read the works of Vivekananda. So I went online and downloaded 9 volumes of them. But then, I really couldn't make sense of it. But fortunately, he also said that I should read Romain Rolland on the life of Vivekananda. And he got the Nobel Prize in Literature, so it makes perfect sense. But, of course, that's just an introduction. So he's admirer of Tagore, who, the poet and the visionary, the scholar. He is a Christian who, like his wife Frances, is passionately committed to social justice. He's passionately concerned that the benefits of progress be shared with the developing world, especially the least fortunate, the least of his brethren, as the Bible puts it. But finally, he recommends that we all read this book, Romain Rolland on the life of Vivekananda. I have it in the English translation. Got it for $8. I sent it overnight express, so I got it yesterday, and so I can't claim to be much of an authority. But what I gather is that to the extent that I understand Vivekananda, he believed that America had gone astray, that it confuses the aggrandizement that comes with progress, that is greed, indifference to the needs of others, relentless focus on self-improvement to the exclusion of a social conscience. This is spiritual suicide. So this is not what Charles Towns wants to do with technology. He wants, can we help people instead of just helping ourselves? So that was what Vivekananda, he had a lot of good things to say about America too, but he pretty much called it as he saw it. Okay, so he's a smart guy, so he had a lot of good things to say. Okay, so I'm not a theologian, but Vivekananda's assertions seem to be eminently compatible with the golden rule to provide a sound basis for a theory of social justice, which is what Charles and Mrs. Towns believe in and they practice. So, what can we say about, Charles wants science to work with religion. This is not something that theologians do in academies and in schools and write papers about. Science works with religion when it gets there in the field and starts talking to ministers and preachers and churches and mosques and temples and says, what can we do for you? It has to work with policy here. It's just a big complicated thing, but again, it works in Charles's spirit of generosity. So, likewise, so Tagore, well, you'll hear more about him from Rosh. I probably should stop. So, it is my great pleasure to introduce Charles Towns, the 64 Nobel laureate in literature. Well, he did recommend this Nobel Prize in Literature, so, it may well be that he would have got one if he had chosen that career. He's a very good writer, and his explanation of the laser really rocks, so don't read Wikipedia. So, Charles, I'm just another guy with a PhD, but you're Charles.